Good morning, beautiful people. It is Wednesday, June 3rd, and we are back after a one-day hiatus. Yesterday, we participated in the Blackout Tuesday, a pause on social media to raise more awareness for social justice. Now, that was obviously met with mixed reviews from both sides of the line, but when I woke up yesterday and I put a black image up on my Instagram and on my Twitter, and the rest of the boys did as well, I saw that not only it was me, but it was a lot of people that I respect in the African American culture. It was a lot of people stating that, hey, although you might not be protesting with us and might not be walking on the streets and you believe in our mission, here's a way for you to take a stand and say, hey, listen, I value the lives of everybody in America. I value African Americans. I value what they could potentially bring to the table in our world in the future. I value a world where everybody is treated the same. The ideals of America are met. And I said that is definitely what this office stands for. We've been on the side of justice in this particular office for this entire time. When George Floyd passed the next day, although I am very much known as a person that's just supposed to dance monkey dance and give you a mental vacation, we had to take a stand and say, hey, listen, here's the deal. We know that in the past, officers have murdered black people in fashions and ways that we could never really understand. Unarmed black men and unarmed black women were passing away from cops in the past, and there was never a time, aside from the George Floyd situation, and I think it was because of the quarantine and the lockdown and the coronavirus, where the entire country came together and said that can't happen. That was a week ago. The entire world was like, hey, listen, what happened to George Floyd can't happen again. The year 2020 was potentially going to be the time where, although a lot of terrible things have happened with the coronavirus and a potential world war that popped off, in 2020 was this absolute cluster truck of a year when George Floyd was killed on camera for 8 minutes and 40 some seconds. The entire country said, you know what? Now we are in a place where we won't let that fly any longer. Protests happened across the country. Messages were being stated. Words were being said that a lot of white people had probably never heard before. Hey, it isn't just cops killing black people, although that is something that happens. And the white person's answer is normally, well, black people kill black people as well. Well, that's not the point. The point is people are put in a position of power to protect and serve a community. And in the end, too often or not, those particular people are killing black people in their community and their culture. So the conversation is, well, is that all cops? No, it's obviously not all cops. And I hope that everybody understands that as well. Just because you post a black image yesterday for Blackout Tuesday doesn't mean you're against cops, but you are against bad cops. And I've heard a lot of good cops say that nobody hates a bad cop more than a good cop. And I believe this weekend's protests and this weekend's message and the George Floyd legacy could have been one where everybody took a stand and said, hey, there's no more bad cops. And while we're at it, we need a little bit more self-awareness. And I saw just 2 nights ago, protesters in Indianapolis marching towards the governor's house, which is a little bit outside of the city. The governor had his state police outside of his mansion because it had been said that they were coming towards his house. Those state police, I would assume, are pretty high up in the state police. They're the ones that are protecting the governor. And when the protesters got there, there was a standoff. The cops had their shields on, they had their batons, they were ready for the riot, and the protesters were absolutely peaceful. Now, granted, some of them had highlight things, the sport you do. Some of them had tennis rackets, and I don't know if that was for potential catch and throwback of tear gas bombs or things of that nature. I don't know what they were expecting. But while they got close to each other, there was a yell-off. Protesters are yelling at the cops for being bad cops. And I would assume some of the cops were like, hey, we hate the bad cops just as much as you do. Then all of a sudden, in a beautiful moment, the cops and the protesters started to embrace each other. They hugged each other. Then the cops took their riot gear off. The cops then marched with the protesters down the middle of a street in the city that was supposed to be open, marching alongside of them, trying to hear each other out, trying to talk. I thought it was a beautiful step in the moments that we could potentially have officers of the law understand the black community a little bit more. I posted this. Immediately upon posting it, there was backlash from both sides. The super anti-Black Lives Matter group started tweeting, well, the cops should arrest all of them. They're stopping the streets. They're the ones that burn the things down. And then the Black Lives Matter people were upset about it because they were like, no, as soon as this camera goes off, they're going to tear gas and they're going to shoot rubber bullets at all those protesters again. It's like, well, damn, is there anything that can happen that'll make everybody happy? And the only thing I can think about is 1 week ago, we were at a standpoint where everybody was on the same page. Now, granted, that narrative got distracted and moved whenever looters and rioters and opportunists took advantage of a protest that was something for good, and they started burning down our cities. It happened here in Indianapolis, happened in Minneapolis, happened in Pittsburgh, happened in Madison, Wisconsin, happened in New York, happened in LA, happened in Boston. All these places, the only thing that was being shown late at night was these cities getting burnt down. And the conversation moved from, hey, we're all in this together. It's no longer just Minneapolis being upset about George Floyd's passing. It's no longer just Baltimore. It's no longer just New York. It is the entire country marching. And what happened on the back end of that was riots, protests, looters, assaults, violence. In Indianapolis, we had a guy that was protesting, a big member of our downtown community, Chris Beatty, former IU football player, an African-American man. He was shot and killed by somebody who was trying to loot and steal and just take advantage of the situation. Absolutely sad scenario. But I do believe if we can all understand that we are all on the same side here. This isn't white versus black. This isn't race versus race. This is one race, the human race, versus racists. And I believe 2020 is the year that we could potentially all take a stand. Yesterday, I saw some black people tweeting me saying, we need help, and the only thing white people are doing is tweeting a black box. It's like, well, when I woke up yesterday, I was under the impression that if I was to do that, it would be me stating, hey, we're all in this thing together, no matter where you're from or what color you are. Then I saw white people tweeting to me saying, you think that's going to stop racism doing that? I hope it is a chance for people who maybe follow me, who never interact with black people, just to understand, like, hey, I value, as should you, and realize that there are some things of our system and some things in our country, and there's some things that we can change and we can directly affect and make things better just by coming together. And I think that is what is going to ultimately happen. Last night in cities across the country, in New Orleans, there was a hug between a cop and a protester, when just a couple days ago, they were all lined up ready to go. Indianapolis, the same thing. I assume it's happening in cities where I haven't seen the video, and everybody's on the same page. The message is one that needs to get heard. The riots, the looting, the vandalism, the fighting, which nobody understands who's directing it, who's involved there, why it's happening. That is people that none of us like. Everybody hates those people. The Black Lives Matter folks hate them because they're distracting the message that, hey, we can change some things. Laws that have been in place for so long that directly target a community are things that should be changed. Then there's acts in there that protect police whenever they have misconduct, that it doesn't have to become public information. So then whenever something comes out that they kill somebody, like Dave Chauvin, who had 18 police misconducts on his record, and then finally his last act as a police officer is murdering somebody on camera and causing, now granted, George Floyd's passing is very sad. His murder is very sad. But maybe this is a time whenever you see cops and protesters hugging and then us all come together, that we can make our country one that was founded on opportunity, one that was founded on freedom, truly be for everybody that lives within our borders. And that's where we stand. And that's why we took the day off yesterday completely. I didn't love that it was on election day, especially in Indiana. I didn't love that people couldn't promote other people to go vote. I didn't love that ESPN and Fox Sports 1 and everybody else was still doing their shows. But I felt a great sense of pride that everybody in this office was like, hey, although we haven't been a part of the protest and we have used our platform to promote this message of togetherness and getting things right for our next generation of humans, whether it's my children, whether it's African-American children, Latino children, maybe we all can live in a world where it's good, but we took that stand together here and we will forever believe that. And I hope and I think that everybody who has a sane mind feels the exact same way. Our country's been embattled. There's been a lot going on. But on the opposite side of this thing, I think, will be a better place for everybody. I hope so. There's always going to be idiots, though. Every single profession, there's going to be a chance that there's a bad apple in there. That's just something that could potentially happen. I just hope that our togetherness, our unity, our unified voices will be stronger than one hole of an ass who can drive a wedge into us. And I pray for that day to happen. I hope for that day to happen. And yesterday, that's why we took the day off, because we are in for that particular set of ideals. Now, we will turn our attention to the world of sport, which is something that we know a little bit more about than maybe giving speeches of bringing the world together. But if we are something that can distract you from everything happening in this world, I don't care if you're white, I don't care if you're black, I don't care if you're Asian, I don't care if you're Latino. Shout out Zito. What up, dude?
Shut up.
Shout out Zito. I don't care if you're Jewish. If you watch this show, we all laugh together. We all have a good time together. And whenever sports come back, it'll even more so show the unity of America. Because when you look in a locker room, when you look on a team, it's people from all backgrounds coming together for one goal. And I'm happy that that narrative is getting shared by basically every human that's ever been in a locker room, because it's very true. America will resemble a locker room someday. It's just going to take us some time to get there, but it feels like we're on the right track. Let's not let the people that are trying to distract us from that do so and be successful, because we were all together just a week ago.